Death is a very common thing within video games. Whether if it's due to the gameplay or due to the narrative, is all up to the player and all up to the game which you're playing. But I feel like there's a big difference between when the player messes up and causes the main character to die, and then the narrative causing the main character to die. And I feel like when death is something which is just an inevitable thing that's going to happen, I feel like it really changes the perspective about how someone looks upon the game, especially when they've played it in multiple instances. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about death in video games and how I feel like it really changes the perspective about how you look upon certain things. So let's get into the video, folks. Now, I'm going to start off by talking about one of my favorite games, and that being Halo Reach. Now, Halo Reach is a very different game compared to all the other Halo games, and mainly due to the fact that both gameplay-wise and narrative-wise, it is very different compared to the other ones. Because unlike Halo 1 through 3, to where there's at least some type of hopeful ending for humanity, and Halo Reach is just a game to where it's just constantly filled with a sense of dread. And if I were to talk about the inevitability of death, I'd say about how despite everything which your main characters do in order to prevent the destruction of Reach, in order to prevent all the bad things from happening, it's almost like it was destined for them to fail. And even in the end, despite them making an achievement, which is basically the entire reason about why the Halo franchise exists, at the end of the day, everything which they did pretty much just went under the rug and they've just been forgotten with time. But now, let's move on with Soma. So Soma is a very different type of game compared to Halo Reach, because unlike Halo Reach, to where you're trying to save a planet from being completely destroyed by an alien race, in Soma, all of humanity is dead. Yeah, our main character, Simon Jarrett, after undergoing a brain scan, basically wakes up in a future to where all of humanity is dead, the Earth is practically destroyed, and the only way of saving it or preserving it is by finding something called the Ark and sending it up to the stars. Which sounds like the ideal ending, but in all honesty just does nothing but prevent the inevitable. And let me just continue on with this point. So, throughout Soma, there's two questions which are commonly brought up. For one thing, what does it mean to be human? And another thing being about the preservation of humanity. Now, half the reason about why half the monsters and robots you come across in this game are the way they are is because of one thing called the Tau. The Tau's sole mission at a certain point became about preserving humanity, so thus it started using corpses and whatever it could in order to preserve what little humanity was left after the cataclysmic event. But then there was also the Ark. So one of the biggest questions has to be about which way of humanity truly preserves it. Eventually, the Tau is going to run out of corpses and robots to shove human minds into, and then the Ark itself is a flawed thing. Because sure, sending it to space sounds like a good idea in concept, but in reality, what is supposed to happen after that? It's just gonna float in space forever until it eventually gets destroyed, and that's just the end. I feel like the true thing about the inevitability of death has to be about the human desire to keep existing. And even though the Tau isn't directly human in appearance or human in behavior, it kind of shares that humanistic desire to keep existing no matter what the cost. And that's one of the things which makes Soma more interesting to me, at least narratively speaking. But of course, let me move on to the last game, which has to be Solar Ash. So in Solar Ash, the main goal of the game is to try and stop your planet from getting destroyed by a black hole. And if there's one thing which I kind of find funny now that I'm recording this for a third time, it has to be the fact that all three of the games I'm talking about include something about a planet minding its own business until some outside force decides to say, oh, fuck you, and just destroy it just because it can. But anyways, let's continue talking about the game. So, in order to stop your planet from getting destroyed by a black hole, you need to find something called the Star Seed, which sounds like it's going to save your planet from getting destroyed, but does nothing but rewind time. So in this game, there's two endings. Rather, you rewind time using the Star Seed, like how you have a million times before, because, well, there's a character that literally exists all because you decided to not let go of the past. And then there's the other ending to where after a small boss fight, you finally witness your planet getting destroyed. Now, I'm actually going to steal a bit of a quote from a YouTuber which I actually watch. His name is probably Jacob, when it comes to the main story about this game. And that being that the two characters of the story, that being Ray, the main character, and Echo, which is also the main character, kind of represent two different sides. With Ray wanting to hold on to the material world, and then Echo wanting to move on, mainly due to the fact that she's been infinitely suffering, all because of Ray's actions. And I do feel like when it comes to this game's story and to its core message of the fact that sometimes, despite us wanting to keep something for as long as we can and try to save it no matter what, sometimes it's better to let things go because all we could do is continue to move on. And that's what honestly makes Solar Ash great, or at least in my opinion when it comes to its narrative. So in conclusion, when it comes to death in video games, despite it being a very common thing, whether it be gameplay wise or narrative wise, I do feel like when it comes to it in a proper context, especially when it's written well, that it can really change the way about how someone looks upon a game, you know. But other than that, I hope everyone watching this video at least enjoyed it, because it was something different, and it was something that I actually had fun working on. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm out. See you guys in the other uploads coming soon, and yeah, enjoy the outro. Later.